So President Trump is lobbying for the Nobel Peace Prize while striking the fuck out of Houthis in the Middle East. I mean, and all the peace-loving MAGA clowns, well, of course they have nothing to say about that. What do they have to say? Well, stop funding these wars. But that would, of course, mean imposing very, very strict sanctions on Russia. And, not sending aid to the Ukraine. But definitely imposing very, very, very strict sanctions on Russia if you want to stop funding their war. Is that what they really want? Is that what they... Man, it's a fucking clown world out there. I'm sure you know what I mean. I've been meaning to make a video, sorry for my long absence, for quite some time, but not only was I dealing and still we are dealing with a sick child that doesn't let us sleep much. Everything's okay. No worries. But things, at least insofar as Trump and the geopolitical situation in Eastern Europe, have been moving so fast is that anytime something happens and spurs me to want to talk about it, by the time I take time to think about what I want to say, what the situation is, what's going on, what I think is going on, the situation changes or something else happens, and they just keep piling on all this type of stuff. And I'm just not the type of person to come on here and, just put out content for content's sake, right? It's just not what I do. So, anytime I form an opinion about something, it seems like I have to readjust or change it completely, and it's hard. Things are moving so fast. But I guess that's the point too. It's hard to know what's going on, which way we're going here, but we're gonna try nonetheless. And having been inundated with so much information and so many things happening, I just don't know where to begin talking about all this shit. There's so much to talk about. I'm genuinely overwhelmed. So I'm gonna ramble. I'm gonna be all over the damn place. I'm gonna forget a whole bunch of stuff that I'll probably touch on in other videos, subsequent videos, and yeah. So for a very long time now, people like Hillary, for example, have been dropping hints that Trump is a Russian agent or a Russian asset, things of that nature. That's been out there for quite some time and has recently picked up steam because of how seemingly friendly Trump has been to Putin, Russia, and all that other good stuff. Now, I don't completely discount the possibility that Trump is a Russian asset, but this idea that he was recruited by the KGB, or that's a little bit too much for me. And these supposed KGB agents coming out and spilling the beans, right? The KGB agents. You know what I mean? It's Rust prop. That's all it is, in my opinion. The What they're looking to do, I believe, is to create discord, divide, and hope to conquer, if not literally the country, maybe the minds, and they already have anyway, of many Americans, right? Is to create discord and keep the American political sphere divided, right? Chaos. So I don't believe that Trump was recruited by the KGB or whatever. Whether or not he's a Russian asset, I mean, in a very broad sense, yeah, he very well could be. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see, right? An asset is somebody that Russia, in this case, could use for political, geopolitical gain, economic gain, while offering him, economic gain, threatening him with releasing some sensitive personal information, maybe, or finding some other way to convince them to uh, give them something, right? Help them out. Now, if Russia, if they strike a deal with Putin for the aluminum or whatever it may be, and Trump and his buddies, get the contracts or whatever have you, and he gets to benefit from it, well, then Russian money is motivating Trump to be kind in some way, shape, or form to Russia, which in effect will make him an asset, right? So, I mean, in a broad, very, very broad sense, I think he wants to be. The question is whether or not Russia is willing to work with Trump. Now, there's been rumors of, for example, the P tape, and those of us who have their eyes open and aren't afraid to tell ourselves the truth, if not anybody else, we know that Trump is a sexual degenerate, and you know, excuse my expression, he probably fucked his daughter or wishes he had. Definitely that. So there's, and just look at the court cases and just come on, like, do I even have to go there? Like, we know the guy is a sexual degen. So is it that difficult to conceive that Russian intelligence might actually have the P tape or something along those lines, perhaps a lot more than that, on Trump, and is maybe using that as leverage to get him to help them out while also providing him the chance to make some money, make some deals? I mean, yeah. Would that make him a Russian asset? Yeah, in the broad sense, yeah. Is there more to it than that? Personally, I don't think so, but I don't completely reject the hypothesis, the theory. Him being recruited by the KGB and working for the KGB, I mean, that's a little too far fetched for me to buy. So, yeah, he could very well be a Russian asset, and I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. Which that doesn't mean he's gonna sell the USA out to Russia. No, I don't even think it's he. To me, Trump has a tenuous grasp on what's happening in the world. Maybe he's an expert in some areas, I don't know. But when it comes to Ukraine, for example, and the geopolitical situation there, who's who and who's guilty of what and what's actually happening, the things that he says lead me to believe that he has very little idea of what's actually going on. He doesn't understand Russia. He doesn't understand Ukraine. He doesn't seem to understand what this is about, this war, or maybe somewhat to some degree. He understands some things, but just some of the statements that he makes lead me to believe that he's not clued up all the way. For example, when Elon Musk became interested in Ukraine some 3 years ago, and after Russia's invasion, the question I had asked was, besides the obvious, right, geopolitical influence, why is Russia attacking some of these specific territories? What's there that they want, right? And came to the conclusion that everything that my research led me to conclude that there's a lot of lithium in Ukraine, and thus Elon Musk, Tesla batteries, whatever have you. That's why Russia wants, also why they want those lands. They want to mine the natural resources, and one of them being lithium, right? But lately, there's been talk of all this like rare earths in Ukraine, and I don't recall finding anything about that. Not any significant um, deposits of any rare earth metals in Ukraine. Maybe they found something and they've been keeping it on the DL a little bit, and maybe that's why Russia is there too. One reason why. But when I looked into this, and a lot of people are corroborating this now, there seems to the whole talk of rare earths in Ukraine seems to be a ruse, a hoax, not the whole truth, right? So Trump, yammering about the rare earths and seemingly wanting them so much, and which is why he's interested in Ukraine first and foremost. Fuck all the, you know, he doesn't give a fuck that people are dying. Come on, man. Like, come on. Nobel Peace Prize while bombing the fuck out of the Houthis, right? Come on. Get the fuck out of here. While shutting off Ukraine intelligence, right? And not imposing um, suffocating sanctions on Russia, right? Allowing, funding their war, financing the Russian war effort. Come on. US and Russia have been doing business for a very long time, and they still are. So he's financing Putin. Duh. Their war effort to a large degree. Anyway, so yeah, the whole rare earth story seems to be there's more to it than that, or Trump is just getting duped, basically, right? He just does. He doesn't seem to have a very good grasp on the situation there, and seeing as he appointed a completely incompetent and just corrupt and morally crooked Tulsi as head of intelligence. I mean, maybe that explains it. I don't know. I, I don't know. I can't call it, but yeah, that's just one of the things that leads me to believe that he doesn't seem to like really know what's going on, which is why he seems to be fumbling this whole thing, these peace negotiations, and he just doesn't strike me as a very good politician because he seems to let his ego and emotion rule what should be a cool, calm, ruthless, and efficient mind, right? If you want to be a good politician, you got to take your heart out of this, right? And just do what's right. And what that is, I mean, you know, not morally right. That's definitely what it is because that's politics. Anybody who wants to mingle politics with morality, like they're just leading you down the wrong path. The two don't mix, don't mingle. It doesn't work. That's not what politics is. It never was. I'm not saying ethics, morality don't have any sort of an influence on politics, but more often than not, it's just a cover for some other goal, and it's just bullshit. Yeah, politics is about power, and what's so fucking moral about taking someone's power in order to have more yourself? That's completely contrary to what's right, right? Politics is all that's a lot of what's wrong with this world. Politics, right? Power grab. Anyway, so it's just there's I'm still hoping that it isn't all yes men around and women around Trump, and that there are, and I have a feeling that that's what's going on. There's a deep state, shadow government, whatever you want to call it, that's behind him, right? Um, Trump draining the swamp is not making government whole or correct in any way, shape, or form, or better. It's about removing political opposition and giving more power to your own cronies. That's fucking politics, right? So anyway, so if he is, it's kind of like Putin or Hitler, right? When a lot of dupes got excited and fell in love with these murderers because they eliminated some bad guys from the spheres of influence in their respective countries. So Hitler got rid of some Freemasons and Putin got rid of some, oligarchs. Yeah, only to become an oligarch himself and replace them with other Jewish oligarchs. You know what I mean? The Russian Jewish Zionist oligarchs. And likewise, Hitler, removed some, got rid of some secret societies because he had his own. He was part of, you know, his own secret occult society. And that's who he. So this is. I mean, I don't know how fucking. I'm sorry, stupid. You gotta be the phone for this bullshit over and over. And the same thing is happening with Trump, right? He's removing some bad guys to put his own bad guys in place. Period. Welcome to politics. Anyway, don't think he's a KGB agent. Whether or not he's a Russian asset, time will tell. But, following these negotiations, supposed negotiations, up until, maybe a week ago or so, I could understand why a lot of pro-Ukraine people, or people who, want what's good and what's morally right. It's interesting to me how the side that's, now this isn't all the way true, but it applies to a lot of people, right? It's very interesting how the side that's been yammering on about morality, where morality comes from, how it's only them who can have access to the knowledge of morality and things of that nature, and the people on the left, they don't know what's moral, or they can't justify what's moral, blah 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 blah. That those people, right, are turning out, a lot of them are turning out to be the least morally upstanding, correct individuals, right? They're murderous scum, or they're people who support scummy murderers, right? They don't believe in the sanctity of human life. They don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in human rights. They don't believe in morality. They don't actually believe in it. It's as if all this time they've been trying to convince us that it's what they say, that like they're the ones who have been playing God, basically. Because when it came to where the day of reckoning came, right, where every morally upstanding Christian who believes God gave us and imbued us with morality, his own spirit, right? However they interpret that, visualize it. When it came to, well, be a godly, morally correct person, they took a big old dump on everything they told us, right? All of a sudden, they're supporting a mass murderer because it's, because they know it's as if they were trying to convince us that morality is what I say, not God, actually, because they're not following God's morality. They're degenerate scum hiding behind the cross. It is what it is. It is what it is. Anyway, right? Because even if I grant you that the West created this war or provoked Russia, first of all, that doesn't mean anything, right? Anybody could be provoked by anything. So what? Do they have the right to be provoked? And the subsequent reaction, right? I apparently provoked a guy one time because his girl's ass walked into my line of vision. You know what I mean? Like, I provoked him. He got up in my face and acted like he was going to do something. So what? Who gives a shit? It's not supposed to be about feelings, right? But even if I grant you that there is or was a reason Russia was somehow threatened, which all of it was already debunked. It's all bullshit. But even if I grant you that Russia had like a moral, uh, there's a justification for Russia to feel upset about the things that have been going on, right? Nobody was murdering Russians. There was no need to defend Russians to that degree, where you had to go murder Ukrainians. Like, that wasn't happening. And if it was, it's because you invaded them by proxy or little green men, whatever the fuck. You did that. No Ukrainians went into Russia to murder Russians. That never happened. And if he had a problem with Ukraine, right? Well, how about diplomacy? I keep seeing on every Lavrov interview or speech that he gives anywhere, it's just Rust bots everywhere. Mr. Lavrov, the greatest diplomat of all time. This is what a real diplomat looks like. America could learn a lot from a real diplomat like this guy. You know, it's just go watch any video featuring him as the prominent figure, and I guarantee you 90% of the comments are that. Totally organic, right? So if Russia has these great diplomats in their ranks, well, why don't they engage in diplomacy? Why are they murdering people? That's not diplomacy. It's fucking clown world. Anyway, yeah, even if I grant you that Russia was slighted and got slapped on the cheek, right? Well, shouldn't they, as Christians, turn the other cheek? Or, okay, all right, if they want to fight back, well, why not engage in diplomacy? This is such bullshit, such nonsense. I don't know how corrupt or stupid you have to be to toe Russian propaganda line. It's so patently untrue. It's just so full of lies and nonsense. I'm exasperated. I have to tell you to see so much support for it. To see seemingly intelligent and, according to themselves, morally correct people fall for Satan, right? Alexander Dugin, Satanist. Well, but he's in the Orthodox Church now, so, well, what does that say about the church? I don't recall him ever renouncing his Satanist roots. And they welcome that guy with open fucking arms. What's up with your church? Well, what's going on, guys? But they won't even fucking touch that. Satanist. Anyway. Yeah. I told you I would ramble. I had a lot to say. And I'm going to get way too tired before I say everything I got to say. But I guess that's what other subsequent videos are for. Anyway. Yeah. So, following these so-called negotiations up until maybe a week or so ago, it didn't seem like much of a negotiation at all. It was just Trump or his team communicating with Ukraine mostly. And when talking about ceasefire or peace deal or Russia versus Ukraine, yes, there was contact between Americans and Russians looking to cut deals, talking about Russian aluminum and the Arctic, and looking to restart some kind of cooperation, right? The evil West that's provoked Russia is like, once again, looking to open the door wide for Russia and say, hey, come on and be part of our Western community, but stop fucking murdering people, which is exactly what they did in the 90s after the fall of the Soviet Union, all the way up to, when Putin started invading his neighbors. It took them like a decade and a half to wake up. They were doing business with Russia. They were trying to have Russia as part of NATO. I mean, they brought Russia into G8. They were buying Russian natural resources, developing their mines and oil mining operations, and just helping to develop Russia, giving them technology, and the West provoked Russia. Man, I don't know how fucking stupid you have to be to believe some shit like that. The West tried to, just as they did with China, and they're getting bitten in their ass over this, right? They opened up and allowed these backwater, regressive, fucking boondock shitholes, letting them develop, because the West understands that in order for these savages to not be thus, they have to be fucking civilized. I mean, come on, man. They're still eating bats, cats, and dogs and all types of shit in China. I mean, you want to see fucking rednecks? Go to Russia. You want to see cousins, on top of cousins. Not to get too graphic again, but I mean, you want to see some inbred fucking pole white trash? Go to Russia, right? So the Western policy, whether it came to commie Russia or commie China, has been to open up, bring capitalism, bring them integrate them into the wider world community so that we civilize these fucking savages and maybe they stop murdering people by the fucking millions. Which isn't to say that the West is all great and not evil either, but it's the lesser of two evils. And they're definitely not starving millions and millions and tens of millions of fucking people to death. Okay? So this idea that the West provoked by what? By turning the other cheek for so many years? By helping to develop and help these places prosper, by helping to raise the standard of living in these fucking shitholes? The West provoked them? You gotta be a special kind of fucking idiot to not understand the world around you. I just don't know, man. Anyway, so the West, Trump is still trying the carrot versus the stick approach, right? I think that's wrong. I think that shit is played. It's not going to work out. Russian elites, they're satanic. They don't want that. Wake up. Then again, maybe Trump is too, you know what I mean? That's why he loves Putin so much. I think Trump's going to get burnt. I think he is getting burnt. Russia doesn't want to cooperate. The current Russian elite that's in power, the one guy that maybe had a chance, never really did, but maybe would have cooperated with the West, was, probably poisoned in a Russian prison. Navalny, like that guy, you know what I mean? They don't want that. Russia doesn't want to cooperate with the West. It wants to destroy the West. That's why they threaten the West with nukes every goddamn fucking day, just about. I don't know. This is why, one of the reasons why I don't believe Trump understands what he's getting into. Or the people behind them still hoping that the carrot approach is going to work with Russia. I just disagree. Hey, maybe I'm wrong, but I just disagree with them. You need to give them the fucking stick. It is what it is. That's the only thing they understand. These savages is the fucking stick. Sorry. He's a weak leader. He's not a strong leader. It is what it is. He's a fucking bully. He is attacking, going after his allies and friends. And he's a little bitch boy when it comes to Putin. Not entirely. I think the left-wing media are blowing the shit out of proportion. But he is soft. Up until this point, he's been pretty soft on Putin. And we'll see what happens. I'm still holding out hope that he actually proves to be a strong leader. Or is told to appear so by the people that are really the puppet masters. True puppet masters. We'll see. But up until this point, it's just been U.S. negotiating the reintegration of Russia into the Western community, with the United States benefiting the most from it by bringing them back into the community, with the one condition being, stop murdering innocent fucking people, right? We want to develop, we want to prosper. Oh, God. It's crazy to me how we're always talking about, in the West anyway, the narrative is about the Western, the military. Like, there is no such thing as the military industrial complex when it comes to China or Russia. That doesn't exist. That's like a uniquely Western thing, and it's a problem, and we have to do away with that, right? You're just repeating Chinese and Russian propaganda, you fucking dupe. The reason why that shit even exists, and look, chicken and the egg, I get it, right? Trump is talking about disarmament, right? The West has forever been talking about disarming, fewer nukes, smaller military budgets, right? While Russia and China have been building up their military budgets. And it's the West that's the warmonger. People are so fucking stupid. I just don't understand how they could believe this shit, right? But yeah, you need a very, very, very strong military industrial complex in order to police the fucking world. It is what it is. You know what I mean? And trust me, all of you Russian fucking stooges and China xenophiles, you would very much prefer to have United States as the cop rather than Russia or China. Trust me. And people know this. People know. They're just fucking corny ass edgelords. Anyway, we'll get to it. Don't worry about it. Because Trump has been only really just negotiating with Russia the reintegration of Russian and Western American economy, there was no real peace negotiations happening yet. And he was only setting terms for Ukraine, looking to see what he can get out of Ukraine. And yeah, throwing a bone to Russia by taking certain things off the table. Look, Russia is never going to agree. The things that they quote unquote gave up to Russia, you can't even come to a negotiating table unless you recognize, if you want to negotiate with Russia and you want to reintegrate them into the Western community and you want them to willingly come to some sort of peace deal, you have to give them these things. No NATO in Ukraine, and at least some type of tenuous, temporary, for the time being, hold on the territories that they conquered in Ukraine. For now, anyway. You have to, if the goal is to actually have peace and have Russia agree to it and stick to it. It's just because anything other than that, it's a non-starter. You're not going to. So they didn't. Yes, they gave in to Putin ostensibly, but you had to do it. If then, it's just is what it is. So that wasn't necessarily a weakness on Trump at that point, anyway. But yeah, he's totally a bully. Anyway, they were looking to get Ukraine to commit to a whole bunch of stuff first, make a deal, see how much they could bend Zelensky before they went and talked to Russia. Because, like it or not, Russia is, I guess, a power of some sorts. They're not that super, but by comparison, relatively speaking, compared to Ukraine, yeah, okay, they're a massive power and they have nukes. It just is what it is. So you have to, unfortunately, get the weaker party, Ukraine, to bring them to heel before you go talk to Russia. You have to make Russia feel like, you have to stroke their ego a little bit because, well, like it or not, they deserve it. Just, evil as they may be, Russia is a power, so it had to be done this way. But once Ukraine was on the ticket, on the ball, once Ukraine had agreed to a ceasefire and some preliminary terms, had given something up, once Trump was able to bend Ukraine and give Russia that little carrot, I had a feeling time will come for Russia to make concession. It's called a negotiation, right? So all that panicking and screaming and shouting from the left-wing media or pro-Ukraine crowd on social media, look, I understand it and I appreciate it because that helps to keep pressure on these unpredictable and, let's be honest, maybe not entirely clued up weirdos like Trump. So I appreciate it to a degree, but at the same time, I did not really agree with the panicking and the freaking out and all this just, I feel like it's been taken a little bit too far and a little bit irrational. So I was just waiting for a moment when Trump was going to start to put his foot down when it came to Russia. And it looks like it's happening. We'll see, right? A lot still has to be talked about. But now that Trump is got Ukraine on the ball and they're turning toward Russia and saying, okay, now it's time for you to give something up. Maybe nuclear power plants, some territory, probably the territory where the nuclear power plant is, because if you're going to work with Ukraine and you're going to develop that economy so that you could benefit from it, whatever fucking minerals may be there, probably just lithium for fucking Musk, it is what it is. You're going to need, power. And the nuclear power plant is a key element of Ukraine's future as hopefully a developed economy. So Putin's going to have to give something up, and they're turning to him now saying, okay, are you ready, buddy? And Putin seems to be panicking. They're getting ready for another offensive. It seems to me like they're rushing to get as much territory as they can before they have to give shit up, before they have to agree to some sort of ceasefire, because Trump may just choke out their economy. We'll see. He might give them the stick. I hope so. He needs to, but we'll see. So we're at a stage where things are getting very interesting, and pressure is going to be put on Russia, at least I hope. One last thing before I go, about a little bit about Kursk and what had happened there. I think it's no coincidence that Ukrainians were pushed out of Kursk because U.S. cut off weapons supply and intelligence. Weapons, I don't know how much cutting off the weapons supply really had to do with this, but definitely intelligence, because in the Kursk salient, that's probably that one point of the front line where Ukrainian forces are really exposed, and intelligence is most needed, necessary, key in order for them to be able to hold their positions at the very least, if not advance further into Russia. So once that got cut off, I think Zelensky or his military brass decided that it was time to cut their losses and not lose too many people holding on to that territory, because Putin wasn't going to acknowledge that, it seemed like, anyway, in any sort of negotiations. He wasn't going to negotiate for Russian territory, and it it would not have been it would have been no longer sustainable for Ukraine to hold on to that land, because the carrot at the end of this, or whatever that land may have, the type of bargaining chip it may have been, just didn't seem as promising as before, and it would have cost too much to hold on to it. So once their intelligence got cut off and maybe some weapons, they had to withdraw, cut their losses, and not really reinforce the border, whatever, keep Russians from advancing any further. So they probably did the right thing. But I am wondering if part of the reason why Trump cut off intelligence and weapons supplies, if only for a moment, it was another carrot for Putin, right? Because it didn't look like he was going to negotiate for that, and he really wanted it back before he came to the table. So Trump, by cutting off intelligence, ensured that Putin was going to be able to take that back. It's a goodwill gesture, not from Ukraine, but from Trump to Putin, while at the same time a demonstration of US's power, right? But because even though it's Ukraine suffering the withdrawal of US support, and it's US using their power to punish Ukraine, it also sends a very strong signal to the Russians to show them how important American intelligence and weapon supplies are, right? So it's Trump flexing US power, which is not just a signal to Ukraine, but I think not just a goodwill gesture to Putin, but also a signal to Putin. Look, man, this is how powerful we are. This is how we could change the course of the battle on the battlefield. Within days, literally, we could change what happens on the battlefield, right? But counterintuitively, perhaps, by demonstrating how much of an influence they could have by crippling Ukraine to a degree, right? If you push that in the other direction, it also demonstrates, and Russians aren't stupid, to the Russians, that if US were to stop with the piecemeal Biden approach and just give Ukraine all the shit that they need, or as much as they can give them in a timely manner, right? Better weapons, longer range, all the stuff that Ukraine needs in order to be able to gain an advantage on the battlefield, right? If they withdraw the aid, Russians advance rapidly, they bring the aid back, give them the intelligence back, Russian offensive stops. Now what if they push forth and give Ukraine that much more in the other direct. They go in the other direction, right? All of a sudden, you might see Ukrainians pushing Russians back, right? So it's a very strong signal to both sides as to who's in control, really, who holds the most power when it comes to this. And I hope to see more signals to the Russians in the coming days of US's true strength. And I hope US starts to exercise their fucking strength, because I'm sick and tired of these weak ass leaders. And Trump, up until this point, hasn't proved to be a strong one. Not yet, anyway. I hope US starts to exercise its fucking power for real in order to bring these genocidal fucking maniacs to heel. All right? Because I don't know, maybe the approach is to a few carrots and a little bit of stick with someone like Putin, but I could only imagine how Russian mothers and fathers beat the fuck out of their children while they're growing up. And that's what they understand the most. And I believe that's the only way to bring them to bear. Russia is a backwater, savage, fucked up, degenerate piece of shit society. Not all, but it's been beaten down by itself, by their own rulers, and they themselves. The whole system has beaten these fucking people down, literally. All of them have been abused by one another, by the system, by their parents, by their czars and party leaders, whatever the fuck. That's Russia for you, and that's what they understand. Okay, the stick. That's what they fucking understand. So I'm waiting to see the stick, right? Because these fucking kids are out of hand. That's all I got for now.